She was fired while pregnant by her billionaire CEO ex. Now she returns as his cardiologist, holding his life in her hands. You're going to die without this surgery, Mr. Blackstone. The question is, do you trust the woman you destroyed to save your life? Dr. Lydia Ashford stood at the foot of the hospital bed, her white coat pristine, her dark eyes steady as she looked down at the man who had once held her entire future in his hands. Kieran Blackstone, billionaire tech mogul, lay pale and vulnerable against the stark white sheets, his usually commanding presence reduced to the fragile mortality of a failing heart. Lydia. His voice was barely a whisper, gray eyes widening with recognition and something that might have been fear. Is it really you? Dr. Ashford, she corrected coolly, her professional mask firmly in place. And yes, it's really me. The woman you fired for being pregnant with your child. The woman you told to choose between her career and her baby. The woman you publicly humiliated and discarded like garbage. Kieran's heart monitor began beeping faster, his vitals spiking with the shock of seeing the woman whose life he destroyed 8 years ago now standing over him in scrubs, holding his life in her capable hands. You're my surgeon? I'm the only surgeon in this hospital who can perform the procedure you need to survive. Your heart is failing, Mr. Blackstone. Massive arterial blockages, damaged valves, and complications that require the kind of expertise that takes years to develop. She paused, letting the irony sink in. The same years I spent building my career while raising the daughter you demanded I abort. Have you ever held absolute power over someone who completely destroyed you? Have you ever been in a position where the person who ruined your life was literally begging you to save theirs? This is the incredible story of a woman who was fired while pregnant by her billionaire CEO ex-boyfriend, who clawed her way from rock bottom to become one of the most renowned heart surgeons in the country. Now, 8 years later, that same man is lying on her operating table, and she has to decide whether to save the life of the person who shattered hers. Stay with me for this unbelievable journey of betrayal, determination, and the ultimate revenge. If you believe that karma always finds a way, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you would do in her situation. But let me take you back to the beginning, to show you how a brilliant young woman went from being powerless to holding all the cards. Dr. Lydia Ashford commanded respect wherever she walked through the halls of Manhattan Heart Institute. At 32, she was the youngest head of cardiac surgery in the hospital's prestigious history, known for her steady hands and her ability to save patients that other surgeons had written off as hopeless. Her reputation extended far beyond New York City. Medical journals featured her innovative techniques. Hospitals across the country tried to recruit her with offers that would make most people dizzy. But Lydia had built something here that couldn't be bought or stolen. She'd built a life, a career, and most importantly, a future for her 7-year-old daughter Phoenix that was everything the man now lying in her cardiac unit had said she could never achieve. Dr. Ashford, we have an emergency, her chief resident, Dr. Marcus Webb, called out as she reviewed surgical schedules in her office. Massive MI, 35-year-old male, helicopter incoming. He's famous, apparently. Some tech billionaire. Lydia looked up from her charts, her dark eyes reflecting the intensity that had carried her through medical school while working 3 jobs, through residency while raising a toddler alone, through every obstacle that life had thrown at her since the day she'd been discarded like trash. Vitals. Critical, but holding. Blood pressure dropping, arrhythmia, but responding to medication. ETA 5 minutes. Prep or 3. Full cardiac team, and get me his medical history as soon as it's available. Yes, Dr. Ashford. There's one more thing. His wife is flying in from the Hamptons. Apparently she's quite connected, if you know what I mean. Lydia nodded absently, already shifting into the clinical focus that had made her legendary among her colleagues. Wealthy patients often came with complicated social dynamics, demanding family members and media attention. But in the end, a heart was a heart, and her job was to save lives regardless of who was attached to them. 20 minutes later, Lydia stood in the trauma bay as the paramedics wheeled in their patient. She was already calling out orders for medications and tests when she caught sight of the man's face, and her entire world tilted on its axis. Kieran Blackstone, the name that had once been whispered with love in stolen moments after long workdays. The same name that had been attached to the termination letter that had destroyed her life and forced her to rebuild from nothing. Dr. Ashford? Dr. Webb's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Doctor, are you all right?" Lydia forced herself back to the present, her medical training overriding the emotional chaos threatening to overwhelm her. Whatever her personal history with this man, right now he was a patient in critical condition who needed her expertise to survive. "I'm fine. What's his cardiac status?" "Massive anterior wall, MI, ST elevation indicating complete arterial occlusion. He needs immediate catheterization and likely emergency bypass." Lydia moved closer to the gurney, her professional mask sliding into place as she looked down at the man who had once promised her the world and then destroyed it when she'd needed him most. He was older now, silver threading through his dark hair, stress lines marking his face even in unconsciousness. But he was still devastatingly handsome, still unmistakably the man who had swept her off her feet and then thrown her away like damaged goods. "Get him to the cardiac cath lab immediately. I want full coronary angiography and echocardiogram. If it's what I think it is, he'll need emergency surgery within the hour." "Dr. Ashford." A nurse approached with a tablet. "The patient's wife just arrived. She's asking to speak with whoever's in charge." Of course he was married. Lydia had seen his name in society pages over the years, always accompanied by some blonde socialite or another. She tried not to follow his life, but it was impossible to completely avoid news about one of the country's most successful tech entrepreneurs. "I'll speak with her after I've reviewed his test results. Right now, saving her husband's life takes priority over family consultations." As Kieran was wheeled away for testing, Lydia stood in the empty trauma bay trying to process what had just happened. After 8 years of building a life that had nothing to do with Kieran Blackstone, he was back in her world, completely vulnerable and dependent on her skills for survival. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man who had fired her for being pregnant, who had told her she wasn't smart enough or ambitious enough to succeed without his protection, was now lying unconscious while she decided whether he lived or died. "Dr. Ashford?" Dr. Webb returned with test results and a concerned expression. "The angiography shows complete occlusion of the left anterior descending artery, plus significant blockages in 2 other major vessels. His ejection fraction is critically low. Survival odds without surgery? Maybe hours. Days if he's lucky. And with surgery? Depends on the surgeon. This is complex, high risk. Most cardiac surgeons would be hesitant to operate." Lydia studied the films showing the extensive damage to Kieran's heart. It was exactly the kind of challenging case that had built her reputation. The kind of surgery that separated good surgeons from great ones. "I'll do it. Dr. Ashford, given the complexity and risk factors, maybe we should consider transferring him to." I said I'll do it. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had never failed in an operating room, who had built her career on taking cases other surgeons wouldn't touch. "Prep or 3 for emergency triple bypass. Full surgical team, and make sure we have adequate blood supply." "Yes, doctor." As Dr. Webb hurried away to make preparations, Lydia allowed herself one moment to feel the full weight of what was about to happen. In a few hours, she would be holding Kieran Blackstone's heart in her hands, literally rebuilding the organ that had failed him. The same man who had broken her heart so completely that she'd thought she'd never recover. But she had recovered. She'd done more than recover. She'd thrived, succeeded, and built a life that was everything he'd said she'd never achieve. And now he needed her expertise to survive. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chun, Phoenix's nanny. "Phoenix wants to know if you'll be home for dinner or if she should save you some of her famous mac and cheese." Lydia smiled despite the emotional chaos of the moment. Phoenix was her greatest achievement, her most perfect creation. At 7 years old, she was brilliant, confident, and completely unaware that her father was lying unconscious 3 floors below. "Tell her I'll be late tonight, but I want to hear all about her science project when I get home," Lydia texted back. As she made her way to the family consultation room to speak with Kieran's wife, Lydia reflected on the strange turns her life had taken. 8 years ago, she'd been a powerless employee devastated by betrayal. Now she was the person holding all the cards, the one with the expertise and authority to make life-or-death decisions. She found Cassandra Blackstone pacing near the windows with the restless energy of someone accustomed to controlling every aspect of her environment. She was exactly what Lydia had expected: tall, blonde, impeccably dressed even in crisis, with the kind of effortless beauty that money could enhance but not create. "Mrs. Blackstone, I'm Dr. Ashford. I'll be performing your husband's surgery." Cassandra turned, and Lydia was struck by how young she looked. Early 30s at most, with the unlined face of someone who had never known real hardship or struggle. "Thank God. Is Kieran going to be all right?" Cassandra's concern seemed genuine, though Lydia detected something calculating in her blue eyes. "Your husband has suffered a massive heart attack with extensive arterial damage. He needs immediate surgery to survive. How soon can you operate? He has crucial board meetings this week, and the IPO launch can't be delayed." Lydia stared at this woman who spoke about her husband's life-threatening condition as if it were a scheduling inconvenience. "Mrs. Blackstone, your husband's heart has essentially stopped functioning properly. He'll be lucky to survive the next few hours, let alone return to work this week. But surely with the right treatment, the best doctors. I'm the best doctor for this procedure. And I'm telling you that your husband will not be attending any board meetings for months, if ever." Cassandra's face flushed with frustration. "Do you understand who my husband is? Kieran Blackstone doesn't have months to spare for recovery. His company depends on his leadership. His company won't benefit from his death, Mrs. Blackstone." Something flickered across Cassandra's face as she studied Lydia more carefully. "Dr. Ashford, you said? That name sounds familiar somehow." Lydia's pulse quickened, but her expression remained neutral. "I have an excellent reputation in cardiac surgery. Perhaps you've heard of my work." "No, it's something else." Cassandra continued to stare with growing intensity. "Have we met before? You look familiar too." "I don't believe so. Now, I need to prepare for your husband's surgery. The procedure will take several hours, and I'll update you when it's complete." "Wait." Cassandra's voice stopped Lydia at the door. "Ashford was the name of that assistant, wasn't it? The one Kieran had to fire years ago for inappropriate behavior." The words hit Lydia like a physical blow, but her years of medical training kept her composed. "I'm afraid I don't know anything about your husband's employment decisions. I'm here as his physician, nothing more. But you are her, aren't you? You're the woman who tried to trap my husband with a fake pregnancy claim." The casual cruelty of the accusation, the complete rewriting of history to paint Kieran as the victim, nearly broke Lydia's professional composure. But she'd learned to armor herself against exactly this kind of attack. "Mrs. Blackstone, your husband is dying. Whether I operate on him has nothing to do with ancient gossip and everything to do with my medical oath to save lives. I suggest you focus on what's actually important." With that, Lydia walked out, leaving Cassandra staring after her with growing suspicion and concern. But as Lydia made her way through the hospital corridors toward the surgical wing, her mind was pulled inexorably back to the events that had brought them all to this moment. Back to the day when her world had been destroyed by the man who now needed her to save his life. 8 years earlier, Lydia Mansfield sat in the gleaming conference room of Blackstone Tech, her laptop open and ready to take notes as executive assistant to the company's brilliant and demanding CEO. At 24, she was the youngest person ever hired for such a senior administrative position, chosen for her sharp mind and her ability to anticipate Kieran's needs before he expressed them. What no one in the company knew was that she was also chosen because Kieran Blackstone was completely in love with her. Their relationship had begun 6 months earlier, growing from professional respect to personal fascination to passionate romance conducted in absolute secrecy. Company policy strictly prohibited relationships between executives and their direct reports, but more than that, Kieran was protective of Lydia's reputation and career prospects. "We can't let anyone know," he'd said during one of their stolen evenings together in his penthouse apartment. "Not because I'm ashamed of you, but because I won't let people dismiss your accomplishments by saying you slept your way to success." Lydia had understood, even appreciated his discretion. She'd worked too hard to get where she was to have her professional credibility undermined by office gossip. But keeping their relationship secret had also meant she had no one to confide in when she discovered she was pregnant. "Kieran, we need to talk," she'd said that morning, lingering in his office after the other executives had left for lunch. "About what?" "If it's the Morrison contract, I've already decided to restructure the terms. It's not about work." Lydia closed the door and moved closer to his desk. "It's personal." Kieran looked up from his computer with the focused attention he gave to everything that mattered to him. "What's wrong? You look upset." I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them like a bomb waiting to explode. Kieran's face went completely blank, all expression draining away as he processed what she'd just told him. Are you sure? I've taken 3 tests. I saw a doctor yesterday. I'm about 6 weeks along. Kieran stood up abruptly, moving to the windows that overlooked the city skyline. This is complicated. I know. But Kieran, I love you, and I thought. You thought what? That I'd be happy about an unplanned pregnancy that could destroy both our careers. The coldness in his voice made Lydia's stomach clench with sudden fear. I thought you'd want to figure this out together. As a couple. As people who love each other. Lydia, be practical. I'm about to launch the biggest IPO in tech history. The board is watching every aspect of my personal life. A scandal involving my pregnant assistant would destroy everything I've worked for. Scandal? You make it sound like we're having an affair instead of a relationship. We are having an affair. That's exactly what this is. A workplace relationship that violates company policy and puts both our careers at risk. Lydia felt something cold settle in her chest. Is that really how you see us? As nothing more than a policy violation? Kieran turned back to face her, and for a moment, she saw something in his eyes that might have been pain. But it was quickly replaced by the calculating expression she'd seen him wear during hostile takeovers. I see us as 2 people who made a mistake and now need to deal with the consequences responsibly. The baby isn't a mistake, Kieran, isn't it? An unplanned pregnancy between a CEO and his assistant? A pregnancy that could derail the most important business launch of my career. What are you saying? I'm saying we have options. This doesn't have to ruin everything we've both worked for. Lydia's blood turned to ice as she realized what he was suggesting. You want me to have an abortion. I want us to make a rational decision based on what's best for both our futures. What about what's best for our baby? There is no baby yet, Lydia. There's a collection of cells that could become a baby if we choose to let it. But we don't have to make that choice. The clinical way he spoke about their child, as if it were nothing more than a business problem to be solved, made Lydia feel sick. I can't believe you're talking about our baby like it's a stock option. I'm talking about our baby like a rational adult who understands the consequences of bringing an unwanted child into the world. Unwanted by who? Not by me. Unwanted by me. The words hit her like physical blows. Lydia, I'm 33 years old. I'm building a technology empire, and I'm not ready to be a father. Especially not under circumstances that could destroy my professional reputation. And what about my reputation? What about my career? Your career will be fine. Better than fine if you handle this properly. But if you insist on going through with this pregnancy, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? Kieran returned to his desk, pulling out a folder that looked suspiciously prepared in advance. Lydia, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to terminate your employment. The words didn't make sense at first. Lydia stared at him in confusion, certain she'd misheard. What did you say? I'm firing you. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out after you've cleared your desk. You're firing me for being pregnant? I'm firing you for violating company policy by engaging in an inappropriate relationship with your supervisor. But you engaged in the same relationship. You pursued me. That's not how it will be documented. According to the file I'm preparing, you've been exhibiting unprofessional behavior for weeks. Coming on to me inappropriately, making unwelcome advances, trying to leverage your position for personal gain. Lydia felt the room spin around her as the scope of his betrayal became clear. You're lying. You're going to destroy my reputation with lies. I'm protecting my company and my career. Something you should have thought about before you decided to get pregnant. I didn't decide to get pregnant, Kieran. It happened to both of us. No, Lydia. It happened to you. And now you need to decide what's more important. A baby you can't afford to raise alone, or salvaging what's left of your professional future. You're giving me an ultimatum? Choose between my child and my career. I'm giving you reality. If you terminate the pregnancy and sign a non-disclosure agreement about our relationship, I'll provide an excellent reference and help you find another position. If you insist on having this baby, you'll be fired for cause, blacklisted in the industry, and left to explain to future employers why your previous boss found you so unsuitable. Lydia stared at the man she'd loved, looking for any trace of the person who had held her in his arms just the night before, who had whispered promises about their future together. You would really destroy my career because I won't abort your baby? I'll do whatever is necessary to protect what I've built. It was choosing his career over his family. The years that followed were the hardest of Lydia's life, but also the most transformative. Pregnant and unemployed, she'd been forced to move back in with her mother in Queens, a humbling experience for someone who had been living independently since college. "You could still change your mind," her mother had said gently during one of many difficult conversations. "It's not too late to consider your options. I'm not having an abortion, Mom. This baby is mine, and I'm going to love them regardless of the circumstances. But honey, raising a child alone while trying to build a career? It's going to be so hard. Everything worthwhile is hard. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing." Lydia had spent her pregnancy applying to medical schools, a dream she'd abandoned years earlier when she'd thought success meant climbing the corporate ladder. But being fired had given her clarity about what she really wanted from life: the ability to make a difference, to save lives, to build something meaningful that couldn't be taken away by someone else's whims. Phoenix Ashford was born on a snowy February morning. 6 pounds of perfect determination with her father's gray eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. Lydia had chosen the name carefully, as a symbol of rising from the ashes of her destroyed career to become something better than she'd ever imagined possible. "She's beautiful," the nurse had said, placing Phoenix in Lydia's arms for the first time. "She's going to change the world," Lydia had replied with the fierce conviction of a mother who would move mountains for her child. Medical school with a newborn was a special kind of hell. Lydia attended classes during the day while Phoenix stayed with a babysitter, then worked as a medical transcriptionist at night after Phoenix went to sleep. Weekends were spent studying while Phoenix played nearby, both of them growing up together in their tiny Queens apartment. "Mama, why do you have so many books?" 3-year-old Phoenix had asked one day, surrounded by medical textbooks and anatomical diagrams. "Because I'm learning how to fix people's hearts, sweetheart. Like when someone makes you sad. Like when someone's heart stops working properly and they need a doctor to help them feel better. Are you going to be the best heart doctor ever?" "That's the plan, baby girl. That's exactly the plan." By the time Phoenix started kindergarten, Lydia was finishing her residency in cardiac surgery, working 100-hour weeks, and studying every free moment she could find. Her mother had moved in with them to help with childcare, creating a tight-knit family unit that revolved around supporting Lydia's impossible dream. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Dr. Sarah Martinez, her residency supervisor, had warned during Lydia's 4th year. "I've never seen anyone work with your intensity. It's not sustainable. It's not supposed to be sustainable. It's supposed to be temporary. I have 7 years of lost time to make up for." 7 years. 7 years since I was told I wasn't smart enough or ambitious enough to succeed without someone else's protection. I'm proving that person wrong, and proving it definitively takes total commitment. Dr. Martinez had studied Lydia's face, seeing the steel determination that had carried her through impossible odds. "Well, if anyone can do it, it's you. But don't forget to actually live your life along the way." "I am living my life. I'm building the life I want for my daughter." Now, 8 years later, Lydia stood outside operating room 3, preparing to save the life of the man who had once promised to destroy her career. She'd kept every promise she'd made to herself and Phoenix. She'd become the best cardiac surgeon on the East Coast. She'd built a reputation that couldn't be tarnished by gossip or undermined by powerful enemies. She'd raised a daughter who was confident, brilliant, and completely secure in her mother's love. And now Kieran Blackstone needed her expertise to survive. "Dr. Ashford?" Dr. Webb approached with the final pre-surgical reports. "Patient is prepped and ready. All teams are standing by. How's his wife handling the wait?" "Not well. She's been asking questions about you, about your background. I think she's figured out who you are." Lydia nodded, unsurprised. Cassandra Blackstone didn't seem like the type to let mysteries go unsolved, especially when they involve potential threats to her social position. It doesn't matter what she's figured out. What matters is saving her husband's life. "Dr. Ashford, can I ask you something?" "What?" "Do you know this patient personally? Because there's been some tension in the air that feels like more than normal pre-surgical nerves." Lydia looked at her resident, this bright young doctor who reminded her of herself at that age, ambitious and idealistic and ready to save the world one heart at a time. "Dr. Webb, personal history becomes irrelevant the moment you enter that operating room. Whatever has happened between me and any patient in my past stops mattering the second I pick up a scalpel. My job is to save lives, not to judge whether those lives deserve saving. Yes, Dr. Ashford. I understand. Good. Because the man lying on that table is someone's husband, someone's son, someone who matters to other people regardless of what he may have done in his personal life. Our job is to give him the chance to become a better person, not to punish him for who he's been. As they scrubbed in for surgery, Lydia reflected on the strange turns her life had taken to bring her to this moment. 8 years ago, she'd been powerless, vulnerable, and completely dependent on Kieran's mercy. He'd shown her none. Now she was the one with all the power, the expertise he needed to survive, the authority to make decisions about his future. And unlike him, she would choose mercy over revenge, professional duty over personal vendetta. Because that's what separated good people from people like the man Kieran had been 8 years ago. Good people save lives regardless of personal cost. They put their obligations to humanity above their individual desires for retribution. But as Lydia entered the operating room where Kieran lay unconscious and vulnerable, she couldn't help but wonder if he would understand the gift she was about to give him. The gift of life from the woman whose life he had tried to destroy. The irony was perfect, even if he never fully grasped it. The woman he discarded as worthless had become the one person who could save him. The career he tried to end had flourished into expertise he now desperately needed. And the baby he demanded she abort was sleeping peacefully in Queens, dreaming dreams that would take her anywhere she wanted to go in life, completely unaware that her father was about to be given a second chance he'd never earned but desperately needed. Beginning cardiac bypass procedure, Lydia announced as she made the first incision. Patient is stable. Let's save a life. For the next 6 hours, Dr. Lydia Ashford worked with the precision and focus that had made her legendary, rebuilding the heart of the man who had once broken hers beyond repair. And with every suture, every perfectly placed graft, every decision that brought Kieran closer to survival, she proved once again that she was exactly who she'd always known herself to be. Someone who saved lives, no matter the personal cost. The woman Kieran Blackstone had thrown away for being inconvenient had become the woman he couldn't live without. Whether he deserved that irony or not remained to be seen. Kieran Blackstone opened his eyes to the sterile white ceiling of the cardiac intensive care unit, his chest aching with a pain that had nothing to do with the surgical incisions running down his sternum. The first thing he remembered was Lydia's face looking down at him, professional and distant, as she explained that his life hung in the balance. The second thing he remembered was the crushing realization that the woman whose career he'd tried to destroy had just saved his life. "Welcome back, Mr. Blackstone." A nurse appeared beside his bed, checking the monitors that tracked his heart rhythm with electronic precision. "You've been unconscious for 18 hours. The surgery was successful. Dr. Ashford?" His voice was rough from the breathing tube, but the question was clear. Dr. Ashford performed a triple bypass with valve repair. 6 hours of surgery, and frankly, one of the most impressive procedures I've seen in 20 years of cardiac nursing. She saved your life. Kieran closed his eyes, processing the magnitude of what had happened. Lydia had held his heart in her hands, literally rebuilding the organ that had failed him. The same woman he'd fired for being pregnant with his child had worked for 6 hours to give him a second chance at life. Is she here? Can I speak with her? Dr. Ashford is in surgery with another patient. But your wife has been waiting to see you. Cassandra appeared in the doorway before Kieran could respond, her perfectly styled hair and designer outfit incongruous in the medical setting. She moved to his bedside with the careful concern of someone playing a role rather than feeling genuine emotion. "Darling, thank God you're awake. I've been so worried. How long was I unconscious? Almost a full day? The surgery took forever, and then they kept you sedated for recovery." Cassandra settled into the visitor's chair with practiced grace. "Kieran, we need to talk about your surgeon. What about her? I know who she is. Dr. Ashford is that assistant you had to fire years ago, the one who caused all that trouble with false accusations." Kieran felt his heart monitor begin beeping faster as memories flooded back with painful clarity. "They weren't false accusations, Cassandra." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Lydia never made false accusations. I fired her because she was pregnant, and I was too selfish and scared to deal with the consequences of our relationship." Cassandra's face went pale. "Pregnant? You never told me she was actually pregnant. Because I was ashamed of how I'd handled the situation. Because I knew that if anyone found out the truth, they'd realize I was exactly the kind of man who would fire a woman for having his baby. His baby? Cassandra's voice rose with shock. Are you telling me you had an affair with your assistant and got her pregnant? I'm telling you I was in love with her, and I destroyed both our lives because I was too much of a coward to stand up to the pressure of running a public company. In love with her? Kieran, what are you saying? Before Kieran could answer, Dr. Webb appeared in the doorway with a clipboard and a professional smile. Mr. Blackstone, good to see you awake. I'm Dr. Webb, part of your surgical team. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck. But alive, thanks to Dr. Ashford. Dr. Ashford is truly exceptional. You're lucky she was available for your case. When can I see her? I need to speak with her. Dr. Ashford is completing another surgery, but she'll be by to check on you this evening. In the meantime, I need to go over your recovery instructions and discuss the rehabilitation process. For the next hour, Dr. Webb explained the extensive recovery process that lay ahead. Cardiac rehabilitation, dietary restrictions, medication schedules, and activity limitations that would fundamentally change Kieran's lifestyle for months, possibly permanently. The most important thing is reducing stress, Dr. Webb emphasized. Your heart attack was caused by a combination of genetic predisposition and lifestyle factors. High stress, poor diet, lack of exercise, and what appears to be significant emotional pressure. Emotional pressure? Your wife mentioned that you've been under considerable business stress lately. Board meetings, product launches, media attention. All of that contributes to cardiac episodes. Kieran glanced at Cassandra, who was listening with the focused attention of someone calculating how these restrictions would affect their social calendar. How long before he can return to normal activities? She asked. That depends on how you define normal. Mr. Blackstone will need to make permanent lifestyle changes. The high-stress, high-pressure career that contributed to this heart attack can't continue unchanged. But surely with proper medical supervision. Mrs. Blackstone, your husband's heart stopped working. Dr. Ashford rebuilt it, but she can't rebuild his entire cardiovascular system. If he wants to live to see 50, fundamental changes are necessary. After Dr. Webb left, Cassandra and Kieran sat in uncomfortable silence, both processing the implications of what they'd just heard. This is going to change everything, Cassandra said finally. Maybe it needs to change. What does that mean? Maybe I've been living the wrong life for the wrong reasons. Maybe this heart attack was my body's way of telling me to reassess my priorities. Your priorities? Kieran, you've built $1 billion company. You're one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. And I nearly died at 35 from stress and overwork. What kind of success is that? The kind that provides the lifestyle we've built together. The kind that gives us social standing and financial security and opportunities that most people can only dream about. Kieran studied his wife's face, seeing the calculation behind her concern. Their marriage had been built on mutual benefit rather than genuine affection. Cassandra got social status and financial security. He got a beautiful wife from an appropriate family who understood the demands of his career. But lying in a hospital bed, recovering from surgery performed by the woman he'd once loved, Kieran found himself questioning everything about the life he'd built. Cassandra, can I ask you something honestly? Of course. Do you love me? Not what I represent or provide, but me as a person. The question seemed to surprise her. What kind of question is that? We're married. That's not an answer. Cassandra was quiet for a long moment, her perfectly manicured hands smoothing her skirt with nervous precision. I love our life together. I love what we've built. But do you love me? I love the man I married. The successful, ambitious, driven man who could give me everything I wanted from life. And if that man no longer exists, if the heart attack changes who I am and what I want from life, then I guess we'll have to see what that means for our marriage. The honesty of her answer was both refreshing and devastating. Kieran realized that his marriage, like so many other aspects of his life, had been built on superficial foundations that couldn't withstand genuine crisis. That evening, as promised, Dr. Lydia Ashford appeared in his room for post-surgical consultation. She looked exhausted from her second surgery of the day, but her professional demeanor was as composed as ever. Mr. Blackstone, how are you feeling? Grateful to be alive. Thanks to your skill. The surgery went well. Your heart function should improve significantly as you heal, but you'll need to follow the rehabilitation protocol exactly. I understand. Lydia, can we talk? Really talk. We can discuss your medical care and recovery timeline. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Lydia moved to the window, looking out at the city lights rather than meeting his eyes. Mr. Blackstone, I'm your physician. Our relationship is purely professional. Our relationship is complicated, and pretending otherwise doesn't change that. What's complicated is that you seem to think our personal history is relevant to your medical treatment. It's not, isn't it? You could have refused the case. You could have recommended another surgeon. You could have let your feelings about what I did to you influence your medical decisions. But I didn't. Because unlike some people, I don't let personal grievances override professional responsibilities. The barb hit its mark, and Kieran felt the full weight of his past choices settling over him like a physical burden. You're right. I did let personal fears override professional responsibilities. I let them override human decency. Mr. Blackstone. Kieran, please. After everything we've been through, after you've literally saved my life, can't you at least call me by my name? Lydia turned to face him, and for the first time since she'd walked back into his life, her professional mask slipped slightly. Fine. Kieran, what do you want from me? I want to apologize. I want to tell you that I was wrong about everything 8 years ago. Wrong about what mattered. Wrong about what I wanted from life. Wrong about who you were and what you were capable of achieving. Apology noted. That's it. Apology noted. What else do you want me to say? That I forgive you? That I understand why you destroyed my career and publicly humiliated me for being pregnant with your child? I want you to let me explain what I was thinking, even though I know it doesn't excuse what I did. I don't need your explanations, Kieran. I needed them 8 years ago when I was unemployed and pregnant and trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. I don't need them now, but I need to give them. I need you to understand that firing you was the worst mistake I've ever made. Why? Because you found out I was capable of success without your help? Because I proved you wrong about my abilities? Because I threw away the only real love I've ever known for the approval of people who never actually cared about my happiness? The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest in a way that made Lydia's chest tighten with unexpected emotion. Love? You think what we had was love. I know it was. At least on my part. I was completely in love with you, Lydia. I was just too scared and immature to choose that love over the expectations that had been drilled into me since childhood. And what about now? Are you still too scared to choose love over expectations? Now I'm lying in a hospital bed, recovering from a heart attack at 35, married to a woman who loves my lifestyle more than she loves me, and realizing that every choice I made after losing you has led to this moment. That sounds like regret, not love. It's both. I regret losing you, and I still love you. I've loved you every day for 8 years, even when I was trying to convince myself that I'd made the right choice. Lydia felt her carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. You don't get to say that to me. You don't get to claim you loved me after what you did. I know I don't deserve to say it, but it's true. If you loved me, you wouldn't have fired me for being pregnant. If you loved me, you wouldn't have threatened to destroy my reputation. If you loved me, you wouldn't have demanded I choose between my career and our baby. You're right. I wasn't capable of love then. I was capable of obsession and possession and control, but not real love. Real love requires putting the other person's well-being above your own convenience. And you think you're capable of real love now? I think I'm capable of learning. I think nearly dying has given me some perspective on what actually matters in life. Which is what exactly? Family. Real relationships built on genuine connection rather than mutual benefit. The chance to be part of something meaningful instead of just profitable. Before Lydia could respond, there was a soft knock on the door. A small voice called out, "Excuse me, is this where the important patient is?" Lydia's face went white as Phoenix appeared in the doorway, having somehow escaped Mrs. Chin's supervision to explore the hospital where her mother worked. "Phoenix, what are you doing here?" "You're supposed to be in the cafeteria with Mrs. Chun. I finished my homework and wanted to see where you work. The nurses said you were checking on someone really important." Phoenix moved into the room with the confident curiosity of a child who'd been raised to believe she belonged anywhere her mother was welcome. Kieran stared at the 7-year-old girl with growing amazement. She had his eyes, his bone structure, his confident posture. But more than that, she had an intelligence and warmth that radiated from her like sunshine. Phoenix, this is Mr. Blackstone, one of my patients. Mr. Blackstone, this is my daughter, Phoenix. Hello, Mr. Blackstone. Are you feeling better? Mom says heart surgery is really complicated, but she's the best doctor in the whole hospital. Kieran felt his throat close with emotion as he looked at this perfect child who was undeniably his daughter. Hello, Phoenix. Your mom is absolutely right. She's an amazing doctor. I know. She works really hard to save people's lives. Someday I'm going to be a doctor too, but I want to help kids instead of adults. That's a wonderful goal. What made you want to be a pediatrician? Phoenix climbed onto the visitor's chair with easy familiarity, clearly comfortable in medical settings. Because kids are scared when they're sick, and they need doctors who understand how to make them feel safe. Mom says the most important part of being a doctor is helping people not be afraid. Your mom is very wise. She is. She's also really strong. She went to medical school when I was little, and she studied all the time, but she still read me stories every night and helped me with my science projects. Kieran glanced at Lydia, seeing the pride and love in her eyes as she watched their daughter. You like science? I love science, especially biology and chemistry. I'm working on a project about genetic inheritance right now. What kind of genetic inheritance? Like how kids get traits from their parents. Eye color and bone structure and intelligence. Stuff like that. The irony wasn't lost on Kieran that his daughter was studying genetic inheritance while sitting 3 feet away from the father she'd never met. Phoenix, Lydia interrupted. Mrs. Chun is probably worried about you. You should go back to the cafeteria. Can I stay a little longer? Mr. Blackstone seems really nice, and I want to hear about his company. The nurses said he's really important. I'm not that important, Kieran said gently. But I'd love to hear more about your science project. For the next 20 minutes, Phoenix chatted with Kieran about school, science, and her plans for the future. She was brilliant, confident, and completely charming, with the kind of natural warmth that made people want to be better versions of themselves. I have to go now, Phoenix announced when Mrs. Chun appeared in the doorway with an apologetic expression. But I hope you feel better, Mr. Blackstone. Mom will take really good care of you. I know she will. It was wonderful meeting you, Phoenix. You too. Maybe I'll see you again if you have to come back for checkups. After Phoenix left with Mrs. Chun, Kieran and Lydia sat in heavy silence, both processing what had just happened. She's mine, isn't she? Kieran said finally. She's mine. I raised her alone, supported her alone, and built a life for her that has nothing to do with you. But she's biologically mine. That's my daughter. Biology doesn't make you a father, Kieran. Being there does. Caring for her when she's sick does. Supporting her dreams and helping her with homework and showing up for every school play and science fair does. I know. And I know I have no right to claim any parental status after being absent for 7 years. Then what do you want? I want the chance to know her. I want the opportunity to be part of her life, if she wants me to be. Why? So you can feel better about abandoning her before she was born. So I can try to be the father she deserves, even though I know I can never make up for the years I've missed. Lydia moved to the window again, struggling with emotions she'd kept buried for 8 years. Do you have any idea what it was like raising her alone? Working 3 jobs while going to medical school? Studying for exams while she had chickenpox? Explaining to her why she didn't have a father while other kids asked questions. I can't imagine. But I want you to know that if I had known. You did know. You knew I was pregnant, and you chose to fire me rather than deal with the inconvenience of fatherhood. You're right. I knew, and I made the worst decision of my life. But Lydia, I want to make it right now. You can't make it right. You can't give her back 7 years of having a father. You can't give me back the sleepless nights and financial struggles and moments when I wondered if I was strong enough to do it alone. No, I can't. But maybe I can give her a father for the next 7 years. Maybe I can give you the support you should have had all along. And what about your wife? What about your perfect life with someone more socially acceptable than the woman you fired for being pregnant? Kieran was quiet for a long moment, processing the wreckage of his current marriage and the possibility of building something real with the family he'd thrown away. My marriage to Cassandra was a mistake. It was built on convenience and social expectations rather than genuine connection. This heart attack has made me realize that I've been living someone else's idea of success instead of building a life that actually makes me happy. So you're going to blow up your marriage because you had a medical crisis and got sentimental? I'm going to end my marriage because it was never real to begin with. Because I married Cassandra to prove to myself that I could move on from you, and it never worked. That's not my problem, Kieran. No, it's not. But it's my reality. And part of that reality is that I have a daughter I want to know and a woman I never stopped loving. Don't what? Don't make this about us. This is about Phoenix, if it's about anything at all. Can it be about Phoenix? Can you give me the chance to be her father? Lydia turned back to face him, her dark eyes reflecting 8 years of pain and struggle and hard-won success. I don't know. I need time to think about what's best for her. What would convince you that I'm serious about this? That I've really changed? Prove it. Show me that you can put Phoenix's needs above your own convenience. Show me that you can be consistent and reliable and present in ways you never were before. How? Start by telling your wife the truth about who Phoenix is. Tell your board of directors that you have a daughter. Tell the world that the woman you fired for being pregnant saved your life and raised your child while you were building your empire. Kieran felt his chest tighten with something that wasn't related to his recent surgery. You want me to go public with this? I want you to prove that you're not ashamed of us anymore. That you're proud to be Phoenix's father and willing to face whatever social or professional consequences come with acknowledging her existence. And if I do that, if I tell everyone the truth, then maybe we can discuss supervised visitation. Maybe Phoenix can get to know her father gradually, in a way that protects her from disappointment if you decide this is too complicated or inconvenient. I won't disappoint her. You already have, Kieran. Every day for 7 years, you've disappointed her by not being there. The question is whether you'll disappoint her going forward. Before Kieran could respond, Cassandra returned from dinner with a stack of magazines and a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, she said with the kind of pointed politeness that suggested she'd been listening from the hallway. Dr. Ashford was just explaining my recovery timeline, Kieran replied carefully. How thorough of her. Dr. Ashford, that was your daughter who was here earlier, wasn't she? Yes. Phoenix sometimes visits me at work. She's quite lovely. How old is she? Lydia's eyes met Kieran's across the room, both of them recognizing the loaded nature of Cassandra's question. She's 7 years old. How interesting. Cassandra's smile grew sharper. She has very distinctive eyes. Quite striking. I should check on my other patients, Lydia said, moving toward the door. Mr. Blackstone, I'll see you tomorrow for your follow-up examination. After Lydia left, Cassandra settled into the visitor's chair with the satisfied expression of someone who'd just solved a puzzle. She's yours, isn't she? That little girl is your daughter. Kieran felt the moment of truth arriving sooner than he'd anticipated. Yes, Phoenix is my daughter. The daughter you had with your pregnant assistant before you married me? The daughter I abandoned because I was too selfish and scared to be a father. Cassandra was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation and its implications for their marriage and social standing. How long have you known? I suspected when I first saw her. I knew for certain tonight. And Dr. Ashford? The woman who just saved your life. Is the woman I was in love with 8 years ago. The woman I fired for being pregnant because I was too much of a coward to take responsibility for my choices. I see. And now that you've had your dramatic medical crisis and discovered your secret daughter, what exactly are you planning to do about our marriage? Kieran looked at his wife, this beautiful woman who had never really known him or wanted to know him beyond his public persona and financial portfolio. I think we both know our marriage has been over for a long time, Cassandra. We've been living parallel lives, not building a life together. So you're going to divorce me to reunite with your pregnant assistant and play house with your illegitimate daughter? I'm going to end a marriage that was never real so I can try to build something genuine with the family I should have chosen 8 years ago. Cassandra stood up abruptly, her composure finally cracking. Do you have any idea what this will do to me socially? To my reputation? My friends will think I couldn't hold on to my husband, that some nobody doctor stole you away from me. Lydia isn't a nobody, and she didn't steal me from you. I never really belonged to you to begin with. This is about your midlife crisis, isn't it? Your brush with mortality making you sentimental about past mistakes. This is about me finally understanding the difference between what looks impressive from the outside and what actually makes life worth living. And what makes life worth living, in your expert opinion? Being part of something real. Having people in your life who care about you as a person, not as a provider or social accessory. Being able to look at my daughter and know that I'm someone she can be proud of. Cassandra gathered her purse with the dignity of someone who'd been trained from childhood to handle social disasters gracefully. I'll be staying at my parents' house while you figure out whatever this is. When you come to your senses and realize that throwing away everything we've built for a childhood romance is insane, you know where to find me. Cassandra, wait. What? I'm sorry. You didn't sign up for this when you married me. No, I didn't. I signed up to be the wife of a successful businessman, not a man having a dramatic midlife crisis over his ex-girlfriend and secret child. After Cassandra left, Kieran lay in his hospital bed staring at the ceiling and processing the magnitude of what had just happened. In the space of one conversation, he'd destroyed his marriage, acknowledged his daughter's existence, and committed to rebuilding his life around what actually mattered. It should have felt terrifying, but instead it felt like the first honest decision he'd made in 8 years. The next morning brought a new challenge in the form of Richard Goldman, Kieran's business partner and closest friend, who arrived with newspapers and a concerned expression. Kieran, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Richard spread several newspapers across the bed, each featuring headlines about Kieran's heart attack, his hospitalization, and speculation about his mysterious surgeon. Someone leaked information about your medical treatment and the doctor who operated on you. The media is digging into Dr. Ashford's background, and they're starting to ask questions about your relationship with her. Kieran scanned the headlines with growing alarm. Tech Mobile's life saved by mysterious surgeon. Blackstone's doctor has complicated past. Who is Dr. Lydia Ashford? How much do they know? Not everything yet, but they're getting close. Someone at the hospital mentioned that you and Dr. Ashford seem to have a personal history. It's only a matter of time before they figure out she used to work for you. And when they figure that out, they'll dig deeper. They'll find employment records, termination documents, and eventually they'll discover that she was pregnant when you fired her. At that point, someone will do the math and realize the timing makes you the likely father of her daughter. Kieran felt his heart rate spike, not from medical distress, but from the realization that his private revelation was about to become public spectacle. What are you recommending? Get ahead of the story. Control the narrative before someone else controls it for you. Meaning, issue a statement acknowledging your past relationship with Dr. Ashford, thanking her for saving your life, and explaining the situation in a way that protects everyone involved, including Phoenix, especially Phoenix. The last thing any of us wants is for a 7-year-old to become the center of a media circus. Before Kieran could respond, Dr. Ashford appeared in the doorway with his morning examination schedule and a tense expression that suggested she'd already seen the newspapers. Mr. Blackstone, we need to discuss your discharge planning. And Mr. Goldman, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside while I examine my patient. Of course, Doctor. Kieran, we'll continue this conversation later. After Richard left, Lydia closed the door and moved to the window with the controlled movements of someone barely containing their anger. Have you seen the newspapers? Richard just showed them to me. They're camped outside my apartment building. Phoenix can't go to school because there are reporters asking her classmates questions about her family. Lydia, I'm sorry. I had no idea this would happen so quickly. Didn't you? You're a public figure. Kieran, did you really think you could have a medical crisis, be treated by your ex-girlfriend, and acknowledge your secret daughter without media attention? I wasn't thinking about media attention. I was thinking about survival and second chances and trying to make things right. Well, now you need to think about protecting Phoenix. She's a 7-year-old child who doesn't understand why strangers are asking her about her father. What do you want me to do? Issue a statement. Tell the truth about what happened 8 years ago. Take responsibility for your choices and make it clear that Phoenix and I are off limits for media speculation. And if that doesn't work, if the media attention continues, then you'll have to decide what's more important, your public image or your daughter's well-being. My daughter's well-being. Obviously. Is it obvious? Because 8 years ago, your public image was more important than both our well-being. Kieran felt the weight of his past choices settling over him like a familiar burden. What can I do to prove that I've changed? That Phoenix's protection is my priority. Start by telling the truth publicly. No spin, no public relations management, no corporate damage control. Just the honest truth about what you did and why it was wrong. And then, Then we'll see if your actions match your words. That afternoon, Kieran called a press conference from his hospital bed, despite his medical team's concerns about the stress of public exposure during his recovery. The hospital's main conference room was packed with reporters, cameras, and speculation about what the reclusive tech mogul would reveal about his mysterious medical crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I want to address the speculation surrounding my recent heart attack and the surgeon who saved my life. Kieran paused, looking directly into the cameras that would broadcast his words around the world. 8 years ago, I was in a relationship with Dr. Lydia Ashford, who at the time was my executive assistant at Blackstone Technologies. When Dr. Ashford became pregnant with my child, I made the worst decision of my life. Instead of taking responsibility for my actions and supporting the woman I claimed to love, I fired her from her job and publicly humiliated her to protect my own reputation. A murmur of shock rippled through the assembled reporters. I told myself I was making a practical business decision, but the truth is I was a coward who chose my career over my family. Dr. Ashford was forced to rebuild her life from nothing while pregnant and unemployed, and she did so with a strength and determination that I can only admire. Kieran's voice grew stronger as he continued. She put herself through medical school while raising our daughter alone. She became one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the country through her own merit and dedication. And last week, when my heart failed and my life hung in the balance, Dr. Ashford saved me without hesitation, despite having every reason to let me face the consequences of my lifestyle choices. Mr. Blackstone, a reporter called out, "Are you confirming that you have a daughter with Dr. Ashford?" "I'm confirming that I have a 7-year-old daughter named Phoenix who is brilliant, kind, and everything I could have hoped for in a child. A daughter I abandoned before she was born because I was too selfish to be a father." "What about your marriage to Cassandra Blackstone?" "My marriage to Cassandra is ending. It was built on convenience rather than genuine connection, and it's not fair to either of us to continue pretending otherwise." "Are you planning to pursue a relationship with Dr. Ashford?" "I'm planning to do whatever Dr. Ashford thinks is best for our daughter. My personal feelings are irrelevant compared to Phoenix's well-being and Dr. Ashford's wishes." "Mr. Blackstone, how do you respond to critics who might say this is a publicity stunt designed to rehabilitate your image?" Kieran looked directly into the camera, his gray eyes reflecting the exhaustion and hard-won wisdom of someone who'd nearly lost everything that mattered. "I would say that no one would choose public humiliation and professional scandal as a publicity stunt. I'm telling the truth because I owe it to Dr. Ashford, to my daughter, and to everyone who's been affected by my poor choices. I'm also telling the truth because I finally understand that integrity matters more than image." "What are your plans for the future?" "To recover from my heart attack, to step back from the daily operations of my company, and to try to earn the right to be part of my daughter's life. To prove that people can change, grow, and become better versions of themselves when they're given a second chance." The press conference made headlines around the world. Tech mogul confesses to abandoning pregnant girlfriend. Blackstone acknowledges secret daughter. Billionaire's dramatic mea culpa. The response was swift and polarizing. Some praised Kieran's honesty and willingness to take responsibility for his past mistakes. Others criticized him for abandoning his family in the first place and questioned whether his public confession was genuine or calculated. But for Kieran, the only opinion that mattered was Phoenix's, and he wouldn't know her reaction until Lydia decided whether to let him back into their lives. The answer came sooner than expected. That evening, as Kieran was preparing for discharge from the hospital, Phoenix appeared in his doorway with Mrs. Chun and a carefully wrapped drawing. "Mr. Blackstone, I saw you on TV today." "Hello, Phoenix. How are you feeling about everything that's happened?" Phoenix moved closer to his bed with the serious expression of a child processing complex adult information. "Mom explained that you're my father, that you weren't able to be part of my life when I was little, but that maybe you want to be part of it now." "That's right. I made some very bad choices when I was younger, and your mom had to take care of you by herself. But I'd like the chance to get to know you now, if you want that too. I made you a drawing." Phoenix handed him the wrapped paper with shy formality. "It's about genetic inheritance. Like my science project." Kieran unwrapped the drawing to find a detailed family tree with 2 branches converging in the center. On one side was labeled Mom's traits: smart, strong, caring, brave. On the other side was Dad's traits: gray eyes, business mind, determination. In the center, connecting the two branches, was a small figure labeled me. Eyes from Dad, everything else from Mom. Phoenix, this is beautiful and incredibly insightful. I figured out that I got your eyes and maybe your brain for business stuff. But I got Mom's heart for helping people and her strength for not giving up when things are hard. That sounds exactly right. So even though you weren't there before, part of you was always with me through genetics. And now maybe the rest of you can be with me too. Kieran felt tears he didn't try to hide as he looked at this remarkable child who had just offered him forgiveness he didn't deserve and grace he could never earn. Phoenix, I would be honored to be part of your life. But only if your mom thinks it's okay, and only if you really want me to be. I do want you to be my dad, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't leave again. Promise me that if you're going to be my father, you'll stay my father even when it's hard or inconvenient. The simple request, delivered with the directness of a child who'd learned to protect herself from disappointment, nearly broke Kieran's heart. I promise, Phoenix. I will never leave you again. Good. Because I've been waiting my whole life to have a dad, and I don't want to wait anymore. 6 months later, Kieran stood in the kitchen of Lydia's Queen's apartment, helping Phoenix with a science project about cardiac surgery while Lydia prepared dinner after a long day in the operating room. It was a scene of domestic contentment that would have been unimaginable a year earlier. His recovery from heart surgery had been slow but complete, aided by the dramatic lifestyle changes he'd made in every aspect of his life. He'd stepped back from day-to-day operations at Blackstone Technologies, focusing instead on strategic planning and philanthropic initiatives that allowed him to spend time with Phoenix while still contributing meaningfully to his company. His divorce from Cassandra had been finalized with minimal drama, both parties recognizing that their marriage had been a mistake that couldn't be salvaged. She'd moved to Los Angeles and married an entertainment executive within 8 months, apparently finding the lifestyle she'd wanted with someone more compatible. The media attention around his confession and Phoenix's existence had eventually died down, replaced by other scandals and stories. Phoenix had handled the temporary fame with remarkable maturity, telling reporters who approached her at school that her family was private and she preferred to talk about science rather than personal matters. Dad, can you check my calculations on blood flow velocity? Phoenix asked, looking up from her notebook with the focused intensity she brought to all academic challenges. Let me see. Kieran reviewed her work with the same attention he'd once given to corporate acquisitions. This looks perfect. Your methodology is actually more sophisticated than some college-level projects I've seen. Thanks. Mom helped me understand the relationship between pressure differentials and arterial resistance. Your mom is an excellent teacher. She is. She's also really happy lately. Kieran glanced toward the kitchen where Lydia was humming while she cooked, her guard finally lowered enough to show the contentment she'd found in their slowly rebuilding family. What makes you think she's happy? She smiles more. She doesn't look worried all the time. And she lets you help with my homework without hovering to make sure you're doing it right. Trust is something that has to be rebuilt slowly. I know, but I think she's starting to trust you again. And I think she might be falling in love with you again too. The observation, delivered with 7-year-old directness, made Kieran's heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with his cardiac condition. What makes you think that? Because she gets the same look when she watches you that she gets when she looks at her medical awards. Like she's proud of something she helped create. Phoenix, you're very wise for 7 years old. I get that from both my parents. Later that evening, after Phoenix had gone to bed and they'd cleaned up the dinner dishes, Kieran and Lydia sat on her small balcony overlooking the city, sharing a bottle of wine and the comfortable silence of two people who'd finally learned to be honest with each other. She's incredible, Kieran said, gesturing toward Phoenix's bedroom. Every day I discover something new about her that amazes me. She's been excited about having a father to share her interests with. You're the only person who can keep up with her when she gets passionate about complex topics. She gets that analytical mind from both of us. But her emotional intelligence, her ability to see people clearly and forgive their mistakes, that's all you. It's both of us. She has your determination and your ability to see the big picture, combined with empathy and resilience. Those traits will take her anywhere she wants to go. Lydia, can I ask you something? What? Do you think we could ever be a real family? Not just co-parents, but actually together? Lydia was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city lights while she processed the question she'd been avoiding for months. I don't know. The woman who loved you 8 years ago was naive and trusting in ways I can't be anymore. Too much has happened. And the woman you are now. The woman I am now has learned that love isn't enough if it's not backed up by consistent actions and shared values. And do you think I've shown consistent actions? Do we share values now? You've shown up for Phoenix every day for 6 months. You've put her needs above your convenience, your work schedule, and your social obligations. You've proven that you can be the father she deserves, but not the partner you could trust. Lydia turned to face him directly, her dark eyes reflecting 8 years of pain and growth and hard-won wisdom. Kieran, I need you to understand something. I forgave you for Phoenix's sake, because she needed to know her father and you'd proven you could be good for her. But forgiving you for being a bad partner and trusting you to be a good partner are two very different things. I understand. What would help you trust me as a partner? Time. More time. Proof that your changes are permanent, not just the result of a medical crisis and temporary guilt. How much time? I don't know. Maybe years. Maybe forever. Maybe I'll never be able to risk my heart with you again. And if that's the case, if you can never trust me romantically but you're willing to co-parent Phoenix, then we'll be the best co-parents we can be. Phoenix deserves parents who put her well-being above their own desires, whether those parents are together or not. Kieran nodded, understanding that pushing for more than Lydia was ready to give would only prove that he hadn't really changed as much as he'd claimed. For what it's worth, I love the woman you've become even more than I love the woman you were. Your strength, your independence, your refusal to settle for less than you deserve. All of it is incredible. Thank you. That means more to me than you might realize. Can I tell you something else? What? I'm grateful for my heart attack. That's a strange thing to be grateful for. It brought me back to you and Phoenix. It forced me to confront how empty my life had become. It gave me the chance to try to be the man I should have been 8 years ago. You're not the same man you were 8 years ago. Is that good or bad? It's necessary. The man you were 8 years ago wasn't capable of being Phoenix's father or my partner. The man you are now might be, eventually. I'll take eventually. Good. Because eventually is all I can promise right now. 1 year later, Kieran proposed to Lydia in the same hospital cafeteria where he'd first woken up to find her standing over his bed. It wasn't romantic in any traditional sense, but it was perfectly appropriate for a relationship that had been rebuilt on honesty rather than fantasy. I know this isn't the most romantic setting, he said, getting down on one knee beside the table where Phoenix was doing homework while her mother grabbed coffee between surgeries. Dad, what are you doing? Phoenix asked with the blunt curiosity of an 8-year-old. I'm asking your mom to marry me. Really? Mom, are you going to say yes? Lydia looked at the man who had once destroyed her life and spent 2 years proving he could help build something better. The father who showed up for every school event and medical appointment and bedtime story. The partner who had learned to put their family's needs above his own convenience. Ask me properly, she said with a smile that transformed her face. Dr. Lydia Ashford, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I can be the husband you deserve and the father Phoenix needs? Yes. Yes? Really? Really? But I have conditions. Name them. No corporate intrigue that puts our family at risk. No more choosing work over family when conflicts arise. And if you ever make me feel like I'm not good enough for you again, I will perform surgery on you without anesthesia. Those terms are completely acceptable. Phoenix cheered loud enough to draw attention from other hospital staff who gathered around to congratulate the cardiac surgery chief on her engagement to the man whose life she'd saved and whose heart she'd rebuilt in more ways than one. 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony in the hospital chapel, surrounded by medical colleagues, Phoenix's classmates, and the few family members who'd come to understand that love rebuilt on honesty was stronger than love built on convenience. Do you, Kieran, take Lydia to be your wife, promising to love and support her dreams, to respect her independence, and to be a true partner in all aspects of your life together? I do. With all my heart, literally and figuratively. Do you, Lydia, take Kieran to be your husband, trusting in his growth and change, believing in his commitment to you and Phoenix, and opening your heart to love again? I do. But I'm keeping my maiden name professionally. Of course you are, Kieran said with a laugh that came from pure joy. As they kissed to seal their marriage, Phoenix cheered from the front row with the enthusiasm of a child whose deepest wish had finally come true. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant announced, I present to you the Blackstone family, Kieran, Lydia, and Phoenix. The reception was filled with laughter, heartfelt toasts, and the kind of joy that comes from second chances embraced with wisdom earned through experience. Any regrets? Lydia asked as they danced to their wedding song in the hospital's renovated conference room. Only one. What's that? That it took me so long to understand that you and Phoenix were everything I ever really wanted. Maybe we both needed the time apart to become the people who could make this work. Maybe. But I'm grateful for every day from now on. Even when Phoenix becomes a teenager and gives us attitude about everything, especially then, I want to be there for every challenge, every triumph, every moment of her life. And when your board starts pressuring you about succession planning and family legacy, then we'll decide together what's right for our family, and the board can adjust to our choices. As the evening progressed, Kieran found himself watching Phoenix dance with her school friends, her face glowing with happiness. The girl who'd grown up believing her father couldn't be part of her life now had two parents who were completely devoted to her well-being and future. Dad, Phoenix appeared beside him with a serious expression. Can I ask you something? Anything, sweetheart. Are you happy? Really, truly happy? Kieran looked around at the celebration surrounding them. Lydia was laughing with her medical school friends, sharing stories about their journey from struggling students to successful physicians. Phoenix's classmates were teaching cardiac surgeons how to do the latest dance trends. Everything that truly mattered was gathered in this renovated conference room. I'm happier than I ever imagined possible. Good. Because Mom deserves someone who's completely happy to be with her. She does. And so do you. I know. And I'm glad you figured that out before it was too late. Kieran hugged his daughter, marveling at the wisdom and emotional intelligence of this remarkable child who taught him that being a father meant more than providing financial support or passing on a family name. Me too, Phoenix. Me too. As the celebration continued around them, Kieran reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this moment. He'd lost everything he'd once thought mattered and discovered that what he'd gained was infinitely more valuable. Lydia had shown him that strength came not from professional success or social status, but from the courage to rebuild your life when everything fell apart. She'd proven that the woman he'd fired for being inconvenient was actually the most capable, determined person he'd ever known. Phoenix had taught him that being a parent meant showing up consistently, listening with genuine interest, and creating a foundation of unconditional love that would support a child through every challenge life might bring. And together, they'd built something that couldn't be bought or inherited or destroyed by corporate rivals. They'd built a real family, based on mutual respect, shared values, and the daily choice to put each other first. If you believe in the power of redemption and second chances, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what touched you most about Lydia and Kieran's story. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from our greatest losses. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are also capable of the most profound change. And sometimes, love really can be enough when it's combined with wisdom, courage, and the determination to choose what's right over what's easy. Lydia had been fired while pregnant by her billionaire CEO ex, but she'd returned as something far more powerful, a woman who knew her worth, a mother who'd raised an extraordinary child, and a surgeon who held lives in her hands every day. She'd proven that success isn't about where you start, but about who you choose to become when everything falls apart. Kieran had learned that true strength wasn't about maintaining control or achieving social status, but about having the courage to admit mistakes and fight for what really mattered. He discovered that the best legacy wasn't a business empire, but a daughter who was proud to call him father. And Phoenix had shown them both that children don't need perfect parents, just honest ones who love them unconditionally and teach them to believe in their own worth. In the end, the woman who'd been deemed inconvenient had given Kieran the richest life imaginable, not because of what she could provide for his social status or family legacy, but because of who she was as a person, brilliant, compassionate, strong, and capable of forgiveness even when it wasn't deserved. Their love story wasn't about perfection or easy answers. It was about growth, redemption, and the beautiful truth that it's never too late to choose love over fear, substance over status, and family over everything else that pretends to matter. Sometimes the heart that's been broken can heal stronger than before. Sometimes the love that's been lost can be found again, deeper and more meaningful than it ever was the first time. And sometimes, just sometimes, everyone gets the second chance they need to build the life they were always meant to have. This is Lydia, Kieran, and Phoenix Blackstone, proving that the best families aren't born from perfection, but from the courage to fight for each other, the wisdom to forgive past mistakes, and the determination to build something beautiful from the pieces of what came before. Subscribe for more incredible stories about love, redemption, and the power of never giving up on the people who matter most. Because everyone deserves a love story that reminds them that it's never too late to choose courage over comfort, truth over convenience, and family over everything else the world says should matter more.